Hello, everyone, and welcome to Walking Through the Bible. Today we're going to be returning to the Old Testament and begin the 25th study of our Walk Through the Bible, a study of the book of Esther. All told, it will take us 18 lessons to cover this book, with the teaching portion of most lessons being between 6 to 9 minutes in length. We hope that you'll join us for each lesson of this study. Esther is the 17th book of the Old Testament and is the last of the 12 books that began with Joshua that primarily deal with the national history of Israel. This means that upon completion of the book, we will now have completed 2 of the 5 sections of the Old Testament, with the first being the books of the law, Genesis through Deuteronomy. Like the books of Ezra and Nehemiah, Esther belongs to the post-exilic period of Israel's history. However, unlike Ezra and Nehemiah, does not take place within the boundaries of Judea or Israel for that matter. Instead, it takes place within the Achaemenid city of Susa, the same city where Nehemiah would later be said to be serving as the king's cupbearer. It focuses on the Jews who did not return to their homeland during this period, either under Zerubbabel or later under Ezra and Nehemiah. The book of Esther is also unique in that it is only one of 2 books that bear the name of a woman, the other being Ruth, and it is the only Old Testament book which lacks any explicit mention of God, though God is certainly present in this book, though unnamed. It is for this reason that some claim that Esther does not belong in the Bible, for how could something be inspired of God without mentioning his name? However, there is a plausible explanation as to why this might be. We need to remember about the Jews in this book. They were ones who seemingly showed no interest in returning to Palestine. Indeed, the book of Ezra, which later we'll discuss takes place after the book of Esther, we noted that even Ezra had difficulty finding people to return with him. So this seemed to be a common trait among Jews who remained inside the borders of Persia. Thus, we might say that their thirsting for God was somewhat weak. Even still, they were God's chosen people. To those who remained in Persia, the Messiah would not come. For remember, the Messiah would come to the land of Israel, not outside it. But even with this being the case, God had not rejected these people who remained in Persia. He would still have his eye towards them, especially in the face of unjust oppression. But since they were not heavily focused on God, God's name was not consistently on their tongue. The book of Esther thus serves the purpose of showing how divine providence overrules all things, for even in a distant, faraway country, God's people are yet in his hands. But since they are distant, his name is not mentioned. There might be other reasons as to why God's name is not mentioned, but the one just talked about does provide some food for thought. Even with all that being said, the book itself does agree with the narrative found in other books that do contain the name of God. It doesn't contradict other inspired books, nor does it contain factual errors either in history or in doctrine, while at the same time presenting to us a picture of God that is clearly in line with other inspired writings. Added to that the Jews considered this inspired scripture soon after its writing, and we can be confident that Esther is inspired of God and belongs in our Bibles. Even though the one who penned the book is unknown to us, we know that God is the ultimate author, and so we can have confidence in this. As to why the book is called Esther, it is named this after the main character of the book, Esther, a young Jewish woman who becomes queen in the Medo-Persian Empire during the reign of Ahasuerus, who is widely considered to be Xerxes I. This Esther helps deliver her people from a murderous plot concocted by the antagonist in the book, Haman. The name Esther is a Persian name meaning star, whereas Esther's Hebrew name is Hadassah, meaning myrtle, a tree that is often associated with peace, love, and prosperity. As we said a few moments ago, the author is unknown to us, though some consider Mordecai, Esther's cousin, the author. And while this is entirely possible, the fact remains that we just don't know, so it's useless to speculate much on it. It does show signs of inspiration, though, along with the other books of the Bible, and so, since we know, as we just said, that God is the ultimate author of the Scriptures, we can have confidence in this book. As to when it was written, the book of Esther begins with the events that took place during the reign of Ahasuerus, with a specific reference to events that took place during the 3rd and 12th years of his reign. The question is, who is Ahasuerus? Well, from the list of the Achaemenid kings, we have to find kings that reigned at least 12 years, and actually more than 12 years, because Esther ends by clearly stating that Ahasuerus reigned longer than that. That leaves us with Cyrus the Great, Darius the Great, Xerxes the First, Artaxerxes the First, Darius the Second, Artaxerxes the Second, and Artaxerxes the Third. Cyrus, Darius the Great, and Artaxerxes can immediately be ruled out because they are specifically mentioned by name in Ezra, Nehemiah, and Daniel with those names. That leaves us with Xerxes the First, Darius the Second, and Artaxerxes the Second and Third. However, the book of Esther shows no signs of Greek influence, either in language or thought, so that likely rules out Artaxerxes II and III as those who were the kings during the waning years of the Achaemenid Empire and the rise of Greece. For remember, this book was written after the fact, not as a diary. That leaves us with Xerxes I and Darius II. Xerxes I reigned from 486 to 465 BC at the height of the Achaemenid Empire, while Darius II reigned from 423 to 405 BC near the beginning of its decline. And so, based on the power exhibited by Ahasuerus in this book and the extent of his territory, we can rule out Darius II too, leaving us with Xerxes I as the likely king of this book. That would mean that the writing of the book would be after the events of Esther, which would summarize events that took place in 483 and 474 BC, plus the rest of the reign of Xerxes, making the likely writing of the book between 450 and 400 BC. With all of this being said, why study the book of Esther? Well, first, Esther provides us with the historical background and the foundation for the origin of the Feast of Purim, a Jewish feast that takes place in the month of Adar, which corresponds to our late February, early March. Esther also records the story of how the Jews throughout the Achaemenid Empire were spared from extinction through a young Jewish woman named Esther and her cousin Mordecai, both of whom lived in the Persian capital of Susa. So there is a bit of history to be found in the book of Esther. But the book of Esther also provides us with some religious doctrine as well. It teaches us that God provides and cares for his people, even in the face of almost certain destruction and seemingly irreversible circumstances. In this instance, God used an unlikely hero, Esther, a young Jewish girl who rose to become queen of the Achaemenid Empire, showing us that God does not always use the people we might expect, the rich and the powerful, to accomplish his purpose. The book also teaches us an important lesson about standing for truth and righteousness, even when doing so might endanger our life. In the days of Esther, one didn't just go before the king uninvited, not even the queen. Esther put her life in danger in order to save her people, but she did so with faith in God, and God used her and her faith to save the Jews. And finally, the book of Esther teaches us the importance of humility, as seen through the demise of the evil Haman. Overall, then, this will be an interesting study, one that I hope you'll join us for. With that, our time is up for today. The Lord willing, we hope you'll join us for tomorrow's discussion of Esther chapter 1, verses 1 to 9, as we continue our walk through the Bible, one verse at a time. We thank you for watching Walking Through the Bible today. If you have any questions or comments, you can leave them below. But if you like this video, we ask that you consider subscribing to our channel so you won't miss out on other videos in our series, as well as share this video among your friends so that the saving message of Jesus Christ can go out to the whole world.